The shockwave of early 2003 in Los Angeles. The year 2003 dawned on Los Angeles with the unrelenting energy characteristic of the City of Angels, a city celebrated for its sun-drenched beaches, endless urban sprawl, and undeniable vibrancy. Yet beneath the veneer of palm trees and glittering boulevards, the city had always harbored its shadowy underbelly, a complex labyrinth where dreams could flourish, but nightmares could, just as suddenly, take root. It was against this backdrop that a chilling event would jolt the city and ultimately ripple far beyond its borders, forever etching itself into the collective memory of Americans. In the first months of that year, as the city pulsed with its usual blend of aspiration, ambiguity, and anxiety, nobody could have foreseen the shock that would send shivers down the spines of its residents. Whispers of crime occasionally slithered through the city. Film noir turned reality, as facts proved stranger and more terrifying than anything Hollywood could script. But nothing, not unsolved mysteries nor urban legends, could quite prepare anyone for a real-life case that combined intellect, athleticism, heartbreak, and utter horror. It began with an ordinary celebration. Family, friends, laughter, and the glow of reunions filled one upscale neighborhood just a stone's throw from the iconic Griffith Observatory. Angela Wu, a strikingly accomplished 28-year-old woman, at once a data analyst, a champion martial artist, and a beacon of multicultural pride, was the center of attention at a gathering that was supposed to be about beginnings, transitions, and hope. Instead, what unfolded that night would leave all of LA, and in time the entire country, clutching their hearts in disbelief. What made this case seize the imagination of millions was not just the tragedy itself, but the profound breach in trust. Trust in personal safety, trust in public places, and the chilling realization that no amount of talent, intellect, or self-discipline could always guarantee protection from the lurking dangers of the world. It was a moment that united the city in fear and grief, launching an unprecedented police investigation that would come under the unforgiving spotlight of national attention. As television anchors reported live updates and newspapers splashed headlines in bold type across their front pages, parents, students, businessmen, and grandmothers alike could not help but glance behind their shoulders after sunset. For Los Angeles, the case was not simply tabloid fodder or passing scandal. It inspired public debate about women's safety, forced the city's sprawling shopping centers to rethink their approach to security, and became a touchstone for a generation growing up in an era of both limitless opportunity and inescapable uncertainty. The echoes of what happened in those humid days of early June continue to influence local policy and personal behavior, reminding Angelenos that beneath the bright lights, the shadows are never far away. City of Stars, Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the kind of place that almost feels mythical to those who haven't walked its streets or gazed at its skyline. It's dubbed the City of Stars, not only for the movie stars who call it home, but for the literal stars twinkling above the Pacific in the rare, clear nights undisturbed by the city's infamous haze. Sprawling across Southern California's coast, Louisiana is a melting pot of ambition, art, sunshine, hope, and, not surprisingly, contradictions hiding in the shadows. To outsiders, Los Angeles gleams with promise. Palm-lined boulevards, sprawling highways, and neighborhoods with iconic names: Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica. From the studios of Burbank to the low-slung rooftops of Koreatown, the city pulses with a frenetic creative energy that draws dreamers by the thousands every year hoping to make their mark. This is a city that exists simultaneously in the imagination and on the edge of what is possible. What most visitors never see is the hidden city beneath the surface, the subtle tensions that hum through its patchwork of districts, the invisible walls between communities divided by class, history, and hope. It's a city where the wealthy ascend hills in glassy modernist mansions while others hustle in the valley or the faded streets of South LA. Here, privilege and hardship rub shoulders at every intersection, and legends of fortune or tragedy unfold on the same sun-baked pavement. Los Angeles is also a city of relentless reinvention. This has long been both its secret and its curse. Artists, musicians, engineers, and outcasts all find a place here if they can survive the grind and heartbreak. Newcomers find themselves swept up in the currents of ambition, where today's bit player can be tomorrow's sensation or, just as quickly, a cautionary tale. Yet, for every Hollywood ending, countless untold stories are left behind in the tangled sprawl. During the early 2000s, Louisiana was brimming with change. The tech boom was just beginning to hint at Silicon Beach. The entertainment industry was innovating with digital production. and neighborhoods like downtown and Echo Park were feeling the first tremors of gentrification. The city's optimism was potent, almost palpable, as its mosaic of cultures painted a vibrant, evolving tapestry. Crime rates in some areas were falling, but the undercurrents of urban anxiety remained strong, as events too often reminded Angelenos that glamour could dissolve in a moment into heartbreak or fear. But perhaps what makes LA most fascinating is the way it refuses to be defined by a single narrative. For every block alive with laughter, music, and bright city lights, there are corners where loneliness, yearning, and darkness linger, a city that simultaneously dazzles and devours, offers hope and heartbreak, sometimes all in the same day. Locals know this paradox best. Ask an Angeleno about the city, and you'll hear stories of love and loss, of successes spectacular and failures quietly devastating. You'll hear about the relentless sunshine, but also about the restless edge that comes from living in a city always on the verge. You'll hear how the city's beauty and danger are part of the same story, how one can feel infinite possibility in the morning and a haunting uncertainty by nightfall. This is the constant, thrilling tension of LA, the city of stars, legends, and unspoken fears. Main character, Angela Wu. Angela Wu was the kind of person whose story shimmered in the backdrop of Los Angeles as if she embodied the city's very spirit, vibrant, unexpected, tender, and fiercely resilient. Born on July 18, 1975, Angela was the eldest daughter in a multicultural household, the first child of William Wu, a Chinese-American high school principal, and Rosa Mendoza Wu, a passionate Mexican-American literature teacher. From the very start, Angela's life was a tapestry woven of two powerful cultures. Her kitchen table was a place where dumplings met tamales, and her childhood was filled with Mandarin lullabies and the music of mariachi. She took pride in her heritage, embracing both sides with equal love, and learned early how to stand her ground as a bridge between worlds. Her family upbringing instilled in her a sense of responsibility, warmth, and a stunning humility that made everyone around her feel seen and valued. From a young age, Angela was marked by curiosity and tenacity. She excelled academically, always the one to line her folders with neat notes and color-coded tabs. But what really set her apart was her passion for Taekwondo, which she began practicing at 9. Through the years, martial arts became not merely a sport or skill, but a kind of living philosophy. Every punch and block taught her resilience. Every sparring partner reminded her about discipline and self-control. By 18, she had earned her black belt, having already learned to balance strength with kindness. Angela attended the prestigious California Institute of Technology, Caltech, a place that challenged even the brightest minds. It was here that she majored in computer science, carving her path in a field where only a handful of women, and even fewer women of color, dared to tread. Angela's mind was quick, her work ethic legendary. Interns spoke her name with awe, professors lauded her as a gifted technologist, and every group project that included her seemed charmed to success. Friends and family admired how she seemed to do it all, but Angela wasn't the type to flaunt her trophies. Instead, she used her visibility to mentor younger women, especially from immigrant backgrounds, determined that her own struggles would make their journeys easier. She volunteered as a peer counselor and helped organize after-school programs in LA's underserved neighborhoods, always returning to her roots and urging children to dream big regardless of their zip code or accent. Angela's story wasn't just about individual achievement, it was about the power of connection. While she had an analytical mind, quick with a spreadsheet, faster with a critical insight, her emotional intelligence was what drew people to her. She was the friend you wanted around when life got hard, the one handing you tissues during a heartbreak, the one who could turn any setback into a lesson with her unshakable optimism. By her late 20s, Angela had secured a job at a leading California tech company, where her days were filled with code, strategy meetings, and innovation workshops. It was here she met Alex Chen, a thoughtful and charming software engineer whose life and dreams aligned harmoniously with hers. Their romance unfolded quietly at first, over after-hours coffee and late-night debug sessions, before blossoming into a partnership that friends described as the perfect balance of science and soul. In 2001, Angela and Alex were married in a simple but exuberant ceremony beneath a canopy of jacaranda trees, surrounded by family from both sides of the Pacific. Their union was a celebration not just of love but of cultures intertwining, of dreams realized and shared. Angela brought the same approach to marriage she had to every other aspect of life: resolve, gentleness, and a sense of adventure. Together they traveled, contributed to Tech for Good initiatives, and debated the best places for cheap tacos in LA. But Angela's character revealed its true depth in times of crisis. In early 2003, her father was diagnosed with early-stage stomach cancer. Without hesitation, Angela put her career on pause to return to Los Angeles, staying by his side before, during, and after the risky surgery. Family, in her mind, was non-negotiable. She organized spreadsheets of medications, coordinated with doctors, and made the sterile hospital room feel like home with her warmth, unfailingly present, always supportive, the pillar her family leaned on. Those weeks in the hospital were difficult but ultimately defined by gratitude and renewed hope as Mr. Wu's surgery proved successful. Angela believed she would soon return to her job, her bright future seemingly back on track. Her relatives marveled at her dedication, often saying that if ever there was a person who deserved all the good the world could offer, it was Angela. Yet beneath the surface, Angela was as human as anyone else. She fought with self-doubt, worried about the future, and sometimes longed for quieter days away from the constant pressure to excel. Her journals, filled with thoughts in English, Mandarin, and Spanish, revealed a quick wit, but also a restless spirit, one striving to find equilibrium between individual ambition and the needs of those she loved. In the years leading up to that fateful June, Angela had become the glue holding her blended, bustling family together. She was loving daughter, wise older sister to Maria Wu, devoted wife, steadfast friend, and respected professional. Her story was a constellation of kindnesses and achievements dotting the dark and dazzling sky that was Los Angeles in the early 2000s, a sky suddenly darker, more uncertain without her light. Black belt martial artist and academic powerhouse Angela Wu's journey toward mastery in both martial arts and academia was nothing short of extraordinary, a balancing act that defied stereotypes and inspired all who knew her. From a very young age, Angela was driven by an insatiable curiosity and an inner discipline that set her apart from her peers. While other children often jockeyed for grades or attention on the playground, Angela was quietly dedicating herself to two distinct but equally demanding paths, one rooted in physical resilience, the other in intellectual pursuit. At the age of 9, Angela's mother signed her up for a local taekwondo class, hoping the discipline would bolster her daughter's inner confidence. What began as a weekly activity quickly evolved into a lifelong passion. Angela was a quick learner, picking up the precise movements, the codes of honor, and the mental focus necessary for martial excellence. By age 12, she was already outpacing classmates who had years of experience over her. By 16, she was winning state championships, collecting medals, and gaining the respect of peers twice her size. Earning a black belt in Taekwondo by 18 was, to Angela, both a badge of honor and a personal milestone. The countless hours spent sweating on the mats, the bruised knuckles, and early morning conditioning all formed a crucible of character. She wasn't the loudest or most aggressive competitor, but her fighting spirit and tactical intelligence commanded attention. Coaches marveled at her ability to analyze an opponent mid-match, using an almost mathematical logic to spot weaknesses and adapt her strategy on the fly. Angela didn't just spar, she performed as though every movement was a well-practiced equation. But Angela Wu was not content with excelling in just one domain. Her exceptional focus extended effortlessly into the academic arena. From her earliest days in school, she reveled in problem-solving and exploring new concepts, be it in science fairs or math leagues. She was invariably the student everyone turned to for guidance. Her room overflowed with trophies and certificates, but Angela remained gracious and soft-spoken, seeing her achievements as a platform to encourage others, rather than a reason to elevate herself. The culmination of Angela's academic ambitions was her acceptance into the prestigious California Institute of Technology, Caltech, one of the hardest universities in the country to enter. Surrounded by prodigies and future innovators, Angela thrived on the challenges that came her way. She majored in computer science, where her analytical mind and methodical approach, sharpened by years of martial training, proved especially valuable. Late nights at the lab alternated with early mornings at the dojo, yet Angela never let herself fall behind. Her ability to compartmentalize and focus, learned from countless sparring matches, translated perfectly to debugging complex code or running advanced algorithms. It wasn't just her technical acumen that set her apart. Angela's professors would often comment on her willingness to ask difficult questions, her knack for creative problem-solving, and the grace with which she led group projects. Peers described her as meticulously organized, quietly ambitious, and fiercely supportive, a teammate everyone wanted, whether the arena was academic or athletic. By the time she graduated with honors, Angela Wu had become something of a legend at Caltech. The black belt who could outcode her professors, the coder who could throw a perfect roundhouse kick. It was this unique blend of mental and physical mastery that would shape not only her career, but also the way she approached every challenge in life, including the ones that would test her courage to the limit. A loving story and small happy family. Angela Wu's love story wasn't built on fireworks or grand gestures. It was a tapestry of quiet moments and shared understanding. A testimony to the way two lives could blend, not collide, in one of the world's busiest cities. After her academic triumphs and the whirlwind of her early career, Angela hardly expected that love would appear not at rom-com speed, but gradually, almost imperceptibly. Angela met Alex Chen in the polished, humming cubicles of a Silicon Valley tech company, a place where innovation was currency and caffeine a second language. Alex, a software engineer born and raised in San Francisco to a family who'd immigrated from Taiwan, was unassuming but sharp, always quick to lend a hand, the kind of coworker who remembered your dog's name or noticed when you missed your morning coffee. Their paths first crossed in a collaborative meeting about an upcoming product launch, where Angela's calm logic and Alex's quick technical wit made them natural allies. What started as friendly banter over debugging marathons and office ping-pong tournaments steered itself, slowly but surely, into mutual admiration, then something resembling romance. They bonded over their shared values, education as a tool for empowerment, pride in their Asian American heritage, and a sense of duty to uplift others. But what really set their relationship apart was the blend of ease and ambition. They could debate the ethics of AI late into the night, yet laugh about the perils of learning salsa at a community center the next evening. Their romance was never about flashy gestures. Instead, there were home-cooked dinners in Angela's tiny Pasadena apartment, long walks along Santa Monica Beach, learning to navigate each other's quirks, and late-night calls across different time zones whenever work required travel. Friends marveled at the way the two could communicate by just looking at each other, or how they both kept handwritten notes. Angela's tidy, Alex's barely legible, but both always tucked into books, laptop sleeves, and lunch bags. To their families, it looked like old souls finding familiar ground in a new, uncertain world. They married in June 2001, at a spirited outdoor ceremony beneath the indigo shadows of jacaranda trees in Griffith Park. The guest list read like a celebration of diversity. Relatives spoke in 3 languages, and the reception playlist ran from classic Chinese ballads to mariachi and Motown. Angela wore her mother's embroidered shawl. Alex pinned his late grandmother's jade brooch to his lapel. Together they danced into the evening with loved ones at their sides, pausing only to marvel, quietly, side by side, at how improbable and beautiful their journey had become. Marriage didn't dull their sense of adventure. The couple traveled whenever they could, road tripping up the Pacific Coast Highway, hiking Yosemite's granite trails, or exploring hidden taquerias in East LA. They were also committed to a bigger mission. They volunteered with non-profits focused on STEM education for underserved youth, organized tech meetups to promote diversity, and made a habit of attending LA's multicultural festivals. At home, their partnership was built on mutual respect and humor. Angela's fierce independence was never threatened by Alex's egalitarian spirit. Disagreements about chores ended not in frustration, but in playful contests, after which the loser cooked dinner, and the winner picked the playlist. On weekends, they'd take turns hosting dinner for their extended families. Angela trying, not always successfully, to replicate her mother's tamales, Alex perfecting the art of steaming fish just like his father did. Despite demanding jobs, they prioritized together time, a sacred hour after work spent on the sofa with tea, recapping their days or simply sharing comfortable silence. Both imagined children in their future, little ones who would grow up with a library of bedtime stories in 3 languages and an unshakable sense of belonging. For Angela, this tiny but mighty family was her sanctuary against the world's noise, a constant reminder that achievement meant little without love by her side. She never lost the humility she'd carried from childhood, nor the gratitude for each day, quiet or extraordinary, spent building a life with her best friend. Theirs was a partnership not just of heart, but of profound trust, a promise, in all things to face whatever the world delivered hand in hand. Early event of 2003. In the first months of 2003, the Wu household found itself at a crossroads no family is ever prepared to face. For all their resilience, optimism, and tightly woven bonds, Nothing could have forewarned them of the abrupt storm that was about to upend their lives. It began almost quietly, the way most life-altering twists do, all subtle signs that in hindsight seem slightly more ominous than they did at the time. Angela, always the one anchoring her family through every challenge, was the first to notice her father's changing appetite and occasional winces of discomfort during family meals. At first everyone downplayed the issues. Perhaps it was stress, or just the toll of a busy semester for William Wu. But Angela's instinct, shaped by years of responsibility and a fierce protective streak, told her something was wrong. She gently insisted on hospital tests, accompanying him to every appointment, navigating insurance paperwork with the efficiency she brought to every crisis. March of 2003 would forever be a turning point. The diagnosis was stark. William Wu had early-stage stomach cancer. Angela received the news by her mother's side, gripping her hand tightly in a waiting room that suddenly felt cold and cavernous. The family, once buoyant with the afterglow of Angela's recent successes and her father's pride, was thrown into a state where time seemed to operate differently. Every day was measured by scans, consultations, doctor's calls. The steadiness that had defined their lives was replaced overnight by uncertainty and a constant whir of inner questions. Angela responded the way she always had, by stepping up. She put her career and personal ambitions in San Francisco on immediate hold, sending emails late into the night to defer projects, call off travel plans, and ask colleagues for patience. Her only priority was family. Within days she had established a spreadsheet tracking her father's medications, follow-up appointments, and nutritional needs. Hospital rooms soon had the comforting touch of home, potted plants from their backyard, her mother's congee in a thermos, books in 3 languages for her father to leaf through. Angela managed every detail with a calm proficiency that inspired her mother and sister Maria to stay strong, even as anxiety quietly gnawed away at their nerves. She answered relatives' questions, buffered her father from worry about their finances, and made room for her own heartache only in the sleepless hours before dawn. The weeks blurred into each other as William underwent surgery, a daunting procedure precarious even in the best circumstances. It was a strange period marked by both intense hope and breathless dread, the Wu family moving through the world as if in a fishbowl, their private fears and fragile optimism on constant display. Angela's presence in the hospital halls was a quiet force, earning nods of respect from nursing staff and bringing a rare sense of warmth to cold, institutional spaces. After what felt like an eternity, the news they desperately wished for finally came. The operation was a success. William would need a long recovery, but he was going to survive. The relief that swept through the Wu home was immense. Tears, laughter, and exhausted embraces in their tiny kitchen, gratitude coursing through each of them like sunlight returning after a long storm. Angela allowed herself the first deep breath in weeks. For a brief time it seemed as if fate had given the family back their future, fragile but beautiful, and she began to imagine returning to her job, traveling again with Alex, making up for lost time. The ordeal, though harrowing, had brought the family closer than ever before, a hard-won reminder that in the end, love and togetherness could outlast even the darkest shadows. Yet underneath that momentary peace, exhaustion lingered. Angela was still shouldering 1,000 invisible worries. She worried about the side effects of medicines, her mother's quiet fatigue, and Maria's efforts to juggle school and stress. There were still follow-up appointments, dietary restrictions to manage, and whispers of anxiety in family group chats. As Angela tidied the medicine shelf one afternoon and glanced at her family, she wondered if life could truly go back to what it was, if the innocence they'd lost to cancer could ever fully return. But none of them, not even Angela with her uncanny intuition, could have anticipated the real storm still looming on the horizon. The year 2003 had started with a harrowing brush with mortality, but for the Wu family the worst, unimaginable in its cruelty, had not even arrived. Fate was about to deliver one more test, and all the strength, hope, and resilience they had summoned would soon be called upon once again, this time in ways none of them could have imagined. The farewell party no one could ever forget. On a sweltering Friday evening in mid-June 2003, Angela Wu's friends and family gathered with a bittersweet mixture of joy and nostalgia pulsing beneath the surface. The occasion was a farewell. Angela, always the center of her community, was about to head back north to resume her career and life in San Francisco after months devoted to family in LA. The chosen venue was a cozy yet bustling restaurant, tucked away in the heart of Glendale's most popular shopping center, a place that perfectly encapsulated Angela's LA roots, multicultural, lively, a meeting point of memories. Inside, the air buzzed with laughter and warm voices, Angela's mother Rosa bustling about with homemade treats for the guests, her younger sister Maria darting among friends, snapping candid photos on a newly gifted digital camera, mentors from university exchanging stories with Angela's old sparring partners from the taekwondo gym. Even her former tech colleagues made the trip, claiming a corner booth and gifting Angela a novelty mug emblazoned with binary code, an inside joke that had everyone giggling. A playlist mingled with songs from 3 languages, English, Mandarin, and Spanish, as if echoing the rhythm of Angela's childhood home. The Wu family had always been magnets for people of all backgrounds, and tonight their table was a tapestry of accents, generations, and dreams. In the center of it all was Angela herself, radiant, half embarrassed by the fuss but deeply touched. She moved between tables with that graceful ease no social anxiety could touch, pausing to check on her mother, refilling a friend's tea, breaking into spontaneous laughter at a memory someone had dredged up from high school. Each conversation was threaded with affection, the kind that only comes from sharing true ups and downs. Speeches began over dessert. Maria, voice trembling only slightly, stood and told the room how Angela had been not just a hero sister but a ninja guardian, who protected her through heartbreak, calculus, and every awkward stage in between. Rosa reminded the gathering of Angela's sacrifices for the family in recent months, her humor unflagging even in hospital corridors. Colleagues praised her unstoppable creativity and her ridiculously calm presence under pressure. A family friend joked that even in tech you could tell Angela was a martial artist. No deadline could knock her off balance. As the final toasts fizzed and laughter softened, Angela slipped out a little thank you, filled with that blend of humility and wit everyone loved. She spoke about the gifts of her multicultural heritage, the honor and heartbreak of caretaking, and her gratitude for each person helping her feel both rooted and ready for the next chapter. There was not a dry eye in the room, even the waitstaff paused, moved by her words. The party lingered late into the evening. No one wanted to leave, perhaps feeling somewhere deep down how precious ordinary joys really are when change looms. Outside, the city lights flickered and car engines hummed, but inside, the memories Angela had built, of resilience, laughter, and love, warmed every shadow in that unforgettable room. Vanish without a trace. The hours after Angela's farewell party should have been filled with gentle goodbyes, last-minute packing, and hopeful anticipation for what lay ahead. Instead, within the span of a single fleeting decision, her entire world, and that of her loved ones, was plunged into uncertainty so stark that time itself seemed to fracture. After the laughter and tears of the gathering faded, Angela accompanied her mother and younger sister down the cool, echoing staircase of the parking garage, intending simply to collect the family car for their drive home. The swirl of voices, the glow of city lights, and the comforting hum of a Friday night in Los Angeles seemed, for an instant, like protection against any lurking misfortune. But when Angela realized she had left her parking ticket at the restaurant, she assured her mother and sister she would return quickly and darted back toward the elevator, her footsteps blending with those of countless strangers moving through this public yet anonymous space. Minutes slipped by, at first subtle, then ominous in their length. Her mother's worried glances became silent prayers. Her sister, clutching borrowed keys, tried to reassure herself that delays were normal, that perhaps Angela had run into old acquaintances, had been stopped for a final hug. The multi-story parking structure, so often a mundane part of city life, became a setting of growing dread. Calls to Angela's phone rang out unanswered. The ringback, normally familiar and friendly, suddenly seemed cold and accusatory amidst the cavernous echoes. The routine suspense of waiting drifted into panic. Her mother's voice trembled as she called Angela's name through concrete hallways. Maria dashed up and down the stairwells, heart hammering, hope slipping away as each car that passed was not Angela's. The parking attendant, usually nonchalant, grew alarmed by the urgency of their questions and agreed to sweep the lots yet again. Within the hour, the Wu family's anxiety turned to dread. Neither Angela nor her car were anywhere to be found. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, erased between two heartbeats in this most ordinary of places. The next steps unfolded in a feverish, disjointed blur. Police arrived amid the sound of wailing sirens and frantic explanations. The restaurant's waitstaff described Angela's recent return for the parking ticket, but no one could recall her leaving again. Surveillance footage was requested. a process that felt torturously slow as hope and terror warred in the hearts of those who loved her. Family, friends, and neighbors arrived to hold vigil beside the Wu women, their presence a fragile comfort against an ever-mounting tide of fear. News of Angela's disappearance soon found its way to group emails and, within hours, to the city's airwaves. As Los Angeles glowed sleepless under the neon veil of midnight, Angela's absence pressed in from every corner. The blinking screen of her unanswered messages, her untouched plate at home, the jacket she had meant to grab before leaving. There was no note, no sign of struggle inside the restaurant, no sound that anyone could remember. In a city known for reinvention and happy endings, the beginning of this new story was nothing but a void, frightening in its absoluteness, agonizing in its unexplained silence. The first clues and anxious anticipation. The search for Angela Wu shifted into an exhausting, surreal marathon in the hours and days following her disappearance. For her family, the experience became a dizzying cycle of dread, fleeting hope, and aching uncertainty. The first glimmers of information, those tenuous, desperate clues, carried the weight of the world upon them, and every new scrap of detail became both lifeline and torment. On the morning after Angela vanished, detectives flocked to the scene, the concrete maze of the multi-story parking garage already cordoned off in yellow tape, its entrances guarded by uniformed officers. It was here, among faded parking lines and greasy tire marks, that investigators believed the truth about Angela's fate was hidden. As the early sun slanted onto the scene, camera crews gathered at the perimeter, microphones poised for heartbreak or hope. The Wu family waited in the corner of a stuffy office inside the shopping center, hands clasped, nerves raw. Maria nervously scrolled through her phone, rereading her last messages to Angela as if a hidden code might surface. Rosa, Angela's mother, clutched the scarf her daughter wore the night before, knuckles white. Detectives spoke in hushed, urgent tones. The first signs were discouraging. Her car was still missing, her phone had gone silent, and all that remained at the restaurant was a half-finished cup of tea. Security footage became the initial focus, but in 2003, surveillance cameras at public facilities were grainy, often more theatrical suggestion than reliable documentation. Still, hope rallied around the discovery of a shadowy silhouette, a glimpse of Angela walking briskly, then, moments later, a taller figure trailing behind her through the dim glow of corridor lights. Technicians replayed the grainy feed dozens of times, scrutinizing every gesture and step for telltale signs. Could he be a friend? A random stranger? The doubts multiplied, yet, to those who knew her, Angela's tense posture spoke volumes, radiating unease even in a blur of pixels. Over the course of that first day, police and volunteers scoured the area for any overlooked clues, a dropped purse, a scrap of clothing, a set of keys. Flyers were printed with Angela's smiling photo, posted on telephone poles and in coffee shop windows, and shared around campus and on early online forums. Friends mobilized, organizing search parties and candle-lit vigils, their hope flickering between despair and determination. Maria and Rosa found themselves at the center of a storm they could barely process, fielding calls from cousins, responding to journalists, alternating between numb exhaustion and the urge to search city streets themselves. Yet as hours stretched into another anxious night, all that ultimately remained were the initial, maddeningly incomplete clues, the uncertain camera footage, the missing car, the unreturned calls, and through it all the aching question that would not let them rest. Was Angela out there waiting for them to find her, or had she already been stolen from their world forever? Shocking discovery and scientific evidence. The shocking discovery broke over Los Angeles like a storm, relentless, indiscriminate, impossible to ignore. It was June 16th when a construction worker beginning his shift on the outskirts of the city's industrial zone noticed the edge of a dark-colored sedan half hidden among debris at an abandoned lot. The air was heavy with early summer heat, thick with the kind of tension that seems to hum beneath catastrophe. The vehicle, battered and dust-covered, had clearly been dumped with haste. What first looked like common vandalism soon unraveled into a crime scene, one that would shake the entire country. Detectives arrived, cordoning off the area, the steady flash of blue and red lights drawing a growing crowd of onlookers. The plate registered back to Angela Wu, tech wonderkind, martial artist, beloved daughter, and now missing person whose face everyone in LA had come to know. The interior of the car told a silent, gruesome story. On the back seat, officers found smeared bloodstains and torn pieces of cloth. Seats were crumpled, suggesting a struggle. The contents of Angela's purse were dumped on the rear floor, cell phone shattered against the footwell. A strand of hair, long, dark, unmistakably Angela's, was caught on the handle. Most distressing were the forensic traces unmistakable to seasoned eyes. Swabs confirmed the presence of sexual assault, and a partial bloody fingerprint smeared near the door handle hinted the assailant had left in a hurry. No one at the scene was left untouched by the horror. The true devastation came only hours later when officers following a faint, acrid scent to a storm drain nearby made a second, grisly discovery. There, among the filmy shadows and trickle of runoff, they found the burned remains of a woman. What first glance couldn't confirm, science soon painstakingly did. DNA samples, painstakingly collected both from the scene and from Angela's hairbrush at home, confirmed the worst. It was Angela Wu. The entire investigative apparatus surged into overdrive, now propelled not just by urgency, but by a collective sense of righteous outrage. The crime lab became a hive of activity, technicians working sleeplessly, analysts poring over tiny fibers, trace residues, and every ounce of potential evidence. They retrieved denim fragments, the bottom hem of jeans known to belong to Angela, and tiny metal threads from the charred remains. The autopsy revealed trauma sustained before her death, confirming both the assault and the sequence of violence. It was a nightmare rendered undeniable, even down to the familiar silver necklace found, warped by heat, but still recognizable to her loved ones. Every frame of security footage from the parking garage and neighboring businesses was magnified, enhanced, and replayed endlessly. Technicians isolated the image of a tall, broad-shouldered figure trailing Angela, matching their stride to the timestamps when she left the restaurant alone. Investigators mapped cell phone pings with careful precision, isolating the window of time where her device went dark. Neighbors living near the lot were questioned about unfamiliar cars, unaccounted-for noises or smells, and seemingly minor changes to their routines. The mounting evidence created a picture chilling in its clarity and despair. Angela W.'s fate wasn't just a singular tragedy, it became an emblem of vulnerability in places once taken for granted as safe. In labs, quiet as chapels, examiners worked tirelessly, not simply for a prosecution, but to restore to Angela and her family the dignity that violence had tried to erase. Nothing about these discoveries could undo the loss, but the science, the careful tally of facts, the patient knitting together of fragments, became a form of hope, a promise that the city would not let this crime vanish unanswered. The hunt for the culprit, tense twists and turns. The hunt for Angela Wu's killer began with a fury rarely seen, even in a city as used to high-profile investigations as Los Angeles. Overnight, the Wu case became the top priority for both LAPD's Elite Homicide Division and a special task force assembled by the mayor's office. The evidence was both blunt and nuanced, forensic clues that screamed violence, surveillance images that teased with silhouettes, and a city inflamed by fear and outrage. The stakes were enormous. Failure was simply not an option. The detectives, led by seasoned investigator Lieutenant Sonia Ramirez and her partner Detective Gregory Feldman, settled into a grueling routine. Their days blended into nights fueled by bad coffee, adrenaline, and a singular focus, catching whoever had shattered Angela's life and symbolically, the city's sense of security. The first 48 hours were a blur, a frenetic tidal wave of interviews, door-to-door neighborhood canvassing around the parking garage, and repeated painstaking reviews of every piece of security footage. Every possible witness, no matter how insignificant their connection seemed, was found and questioned. Parking attendants, busboys, late-shift security guards, and every patron who could be identified from receipts or video records. Progress was exhaustingly slow at first. The blurry shadow that trailed Angela on camera became an obsession for both the task force and a cyber army of internet sleuths. Theories mushroomed on forums, wild and sometimes absurd, yet everyone hunted for a face or motive that could make the horror logical. The forensics lab extracted partial DNA and analyzed tire treads, while detectives pored over registries of known sexual offenders and repeat violent criminals. But nothing fit together yet. There was always a missing link, a question mark, a dead end that sent fresh frustration through the investigation room. Weeks passed, pressure mounting daily as the media continued its relentless coverage. City officials faced rallies demanding safety reforms. Angela's family alternated between hope and despair as rumors swirled and leads fizzled. Yet, behind doors, the smallest breakthroughs sometimes came from the most unexpected places. A witness remembered a parked delivery van idling oddly the night Angela disappeared. An intern cross-referenced traffic camera logs, finding a fleeting glimpse of the car presumed to be the abductors as it slipped onto a side street ahead of a midnight light change. Each new clue lit a spark, setting off furious bursts of action, stakeouts, reconstructed timelines, urgent phone calls to other jurisdictions to check for similar unsolved crimes. Tensions simmered, sometimes boiling over as exhaustion and setbacks threatened morale. Still, Ramirez pushed her team, repeating over and over, "We owe her the truth. We owe this city justice." Resonance and lessons for the United States. In the months and years following Angela Wu's tragic case, a profound resonance lingered over not only Los Angeles but across the nation. Her story, framed in news headlines, debated in town hall meetings, and remembered in candlelight vigils, became a catalyst for wide-reaching conversations that forced Americans to confront unsettling truths about public safety and social vulnerability. The shockwaves moved outward in every direction, refusing to be dulled by the passage of time or drowned by new headlines. For many, Angela's case was a breaking point, proof that beneath all the progress in technology, law enforcement, and social equality, there remained stubborn gaps in how society protected its most vulnerable citizens. Shopping malls, parking structures, and public gathering places re-evaluated their approaches to surveillance and safety. Emergency call stations appeared in more visible locations. Police presence increased after dark in parking garages once believed to be low risk. Technology companies raced to develop better security camera systems, while legislators debated how to balance privacy concerns with the need for more comprehensive real-time monitoring. But these practical changes were only part of the story. Perhaps the most enduring lesson came not from policy, but from the cultural reckoning Angela's story provoked. For women and marginalized groups, the chilling realization settled in. Danger could manifest anywhere, no matter how careful, prepared, or accomplished one might be. Angela's legacy was invoked at self-defense seminars, in university orientation talks, in social media campaigns championing the right to exist freely and fearlessly in public spaces. "Remember, Angela, don't walk alone, trust your gut, demand better lighting," became unofficial mantras echoing in safety workshops from California to New York. Parents, especially of daughters, described losing sleep for months after the tragedy. The gnawing anxiety of every phone call unanswered, every late-night return home. This was a quiet epidemic, weighing heavy on the collective psyche. Entire communities began to question not just infrastructure but culture. What made certain crimes so difficult to prevent? Why were warning signs dismissed, even by those close to danger every day? At family dinners and community potlucks, old assumptions about safety dissolved into restless, urgent debate. Angela Wu's story inspired others to come forward about their own experiences with harassment or unsafe conditions, breaking silences that had endured for years. Her family, once private, lent their voices to advocacy efforts, working with nonprofit organizations to push for resources for victims, better investigative processes, and greater representation of diverse voices in city planning. Yet even as reforms took shape, no amount of security precautions or legislation could erase an underlying truth. Absolute safety in a city as dynamic and at times as unforgiving as Los Angeles may never be possible. Angela's case became both cautionary tale and rallying call for personal vigilance. It was a reminder that community is built not only from laws and technology, but from empathy and the daily courage to look out for one another. The haunting memory of what happened in 2003 did not simply fade. It was woven into the fabric of American life, urging a new generation to be vigilant, empowered, and above all, unwilling to forget.